Morning YouTube, I'm back at last. I've missed you. Today is Wednesday the 5th of July and I'm going to change what I usually do slightly. I'm going to give you my breakdown today at the start of the day because pretty much we have a very simple day today, so I might as well get this out there sooner rather than later. And I'll tell you all about it and some other things that I want to talk to you about today. It might end up being a reasonably long video, but let's get started. So I didn't have any job this morning when I woke up, and I set yesterday a future journey on the CX going from my home address at 9 o'clock in the morning up to Perth in Scotland. And I did that because one of the routes that I've got to do this week, one of the 4 routes that I've got pre-booked in, is going from Perth down to just Hertfordshire, just north of London, and then dropping off in High Wycombe. And I thought, well, if I can get that done quickly at the start of the week, that takes the pressure off the rest of the week. My other jobs that I've got booked in is a couple of drops at Liverpool, 3 drops around Worcester area, and 3 drops around central London. So those are my 4 routes. And I was going to avoid the London route today because it's easy to get to London at any point. I might do that at the end of the week, or even next week if I run out of time. So I'm trying to find jobs that got me from home to either Perth, Worcester or Liverpool. And so I set a future journey to Perth with a go anywhere link and just saw what came up. And I wasn't quite sure if it would work, but I think it did work for me today. So I started looking. I got up reasonably early, had the phone on alerts, sound alerts, so I could hear everything coming through. And the first alert that came through for me was a bid that I put on going from Leicester to Birmingham. That came on the feed at 7:25. That's the first time I noticed a job. I bid on that, I didn't get it. I bid on a job from King's Lynn to Glasgow, which would have been perfect for me. And I put on there, the actual job was 331 miles. And I worked out at 85 pence a mile because it's a small van job. That would be around about £280. So I put a £280 bid on and waited for quite a long time. And this bid came on at 10 to 8. And that stayed on for quite a long time, and I didn't get it in the end. I was disappointed about that, but it did help me later on. The next bid that I didn't get was from Lincoln to Liverpool. Would have been okay, but Lincoln's not that close to me. It's about an hour away, but getting to Liverpool would have been perfect. So I put on a reasonably strong bid and didn't get that. And then I had one from Boston to Rochester. No, Roster, I think it's pronounced. And I'm almost certain, well, I am pretty certain that I know what that place is. So I put on an extra bit of money because of the wait time that I'd like to experience. And it's, just to be clear, I bid higher because I don't really want the job. But if I got it at that price, I'd do it happily because I don't want to be waiting around today. Even if I get paid extra for the money, waiting around doesn't really help me today. I want to get moving. So I didn't get that job either. But then, and that was at 8:30, and then at 10 to 9 a job came up, and you can tell from my different approach, like this is what I got. It was going from Peterborough to Livingston, and it's almost perfect, not quite, because nothing's absolutely perfect. So I didn't even look at the mileage. I just put 280 on because I remembered that I put 280 on for the King's Lynn to Glasgow job. I thought it's going to be similar, so I put the bid on really quickly to get the bid on. I then checked the mileage. It It's 326 miles, slightly less than the other one I put on. So my bid of 280 comes out to around about 86p a mile, and it is a small. It was put on as a small van, so it was kind of perfect. And after about 5 minutes, I got a call, and I got the job. And I was about 45 minutes away from the pickup point. The lady on the phone asked me my reg and my name, and if I was still happy to do it, which I was, obviously. I asked her name. I've written that down so I know who I've got it from. I thanked her for the job, which I always do, and I asked her what it was, and she didn't know. She said, "What? It says one item." So fair enough. It's a small van job. I've got a large van. It can't be anything that I'm going to worry about. And it gives her a point. That question, I think, in my mind, gives the shipper a chance to tell you any extra information that might be relevant. For example, it might be fragile, or it might need, I don't know, some special care or blankets or something. Now, I would know that if I got to the location, but it's always nice to know that in advance, I think. I'd like to be prepared if I can be. So, I put the phone down, and I must say, I felt happy. I genuinely felt an emotion of happiness because it got me started, got me up to near enough to Perth to be happy about it. And I thought I'd just spent a couple of moments thinking, this is a great job. I'm really pleased, and I definitely recognised an emotion of happiness. So I got myself ready. It took me about 10 minutes to get all my stuff in my van, and then I made my way towards the pickup. The dead miles, in inverted commas, to get there was 23 miles to get to the pickup point, and I left at 9 o'clock, and I arrived at around about 10:15. No, that's not right, sorry. Just to check the booking history. I arrived at 10 to 10. And all it was a small pallet we could handball on between the two of us of a machine part. So I strapped it down. It looks tiny in my van. I took a photo, as I always do, uploaded it to CX. I've estimated on the my Google Maps, it's saying it was 7.5 hours, and so it said I was going to get there about 5:20. So I put on an ETA of 7 o'clock because I want to make sure that I'm not having to rush to get there. I might well take a bit of a break on the way up. I know I'm meant to, but I'm not sure I will. But I'll probably need the toilet at some point, so I will take a short break. But more importantly, I'm not going to be driving at 70 miles an hour. I'm going to be driving at 55, 60 most of the way. So I need to account for that because Google Maps assumes you're going at a maximum speed limit all the time. And it's a long way, so I don't want to misjudge the time and tell them I'm going to be there, and I'll be late. So just to be on the safe side, I've added almost 2 hours to my expected time, and I think that's about me under-promising and then hopefully over-delivering. It's a really simple thing you can do as a delivery driver, but it makes, I think, a massive positive difference to everyone involved. It takes the stress off me. The shipper knows they can rely on. They know it's going to be there. It's going to take away some of the risk. And the only thing I've got to be aware of is I've got to call the delivery point an hour before I get there. So as long as I remember to do that, it's going to be easy. Now, it's an ASAP delivery. It's obviously an important part, so I'm not even going to bother looking for co-loads. It's not even a question. Despite my van being very empty and I've got a long way to go, there is no way this is an opportunity to co-load. This is a premium service, A to B, direct, being very professional and careful. It's all strapped down. The item is strapped to the pallet, so I've just strapped the pallet to my van. So it's an easy job. And so at this point, I'm going to that's it, that's my day really. My day is to get myself from where I am now, which is on the A1M, just get myself to Livingston before 7 o'clock, make sure I ring the customer, and make sure I don't crash or dislodge the load. I've got a lot of time to think and maybe record some videos, but I know it's going to be an easy day. So I'm going to at this point give you my stats for today, and if I do something else after this drop off, I will make a note in the description later, like tomorrow, of any amendments to my mileage. But for now, basically, I'm going to assume this is all I'm going to do. So here are my stats based on me getting to my delivery point at 7 o'clock tonight and the mileage I expect to do. So for today, my hours worked will be 10 hours exactly. I will have driven 275 miles, 275 miles. I'm basing my pence per mile for fuel on last week's average, because I've not done any fill-ups this week yet. So that's 14.39 pence per mile. So at that mileage, my fuel will cost me £39.57. For this job, I'm getting £280. And so my earnings today after fuel will be £240. My target is £250 after fuel. So this is an amazing piece of work for me to do. It gets me from my home to close enough to my Perth pickup for it to not to worry about the mileage. I'm being paid basically a full day's rate for it. It won't be really a full day's work. It won't be complicated. So what is there not to like? This is where the job really pays off. So it's nice weather. I'm warm and I'm dry, and I'm happy. So that's my stats, and I suppose what I'm thinking is get myself to Livingston. I will look for a potential job from Livingston to Perth. I think it's highly unlikely I'll get something tonight. I'm looking to get to my Perth pickup. I'll pick up the load tonight, and then I'll make my way south until I get too tired, and then I'll stop and jump in my van. So those stats won't be actually correct, because I'm going to make it a longer day to make tomorrow easier. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to wait until tonight. I'm going to do it now and just give you the stats. So yeah, that's where I stand. So that's easy, nice day. I hope that you're all having a similarly pleasant day. Obviously you're not, because it's not all that easy for everyone. I know I'm privileged today and having a really lucky day, but it doesn't always happen. Right, I'll move on. I want to give you an update as to my state of my van. Because as a same-day independent courier driver, the health of your van is of a big concern. And if you have watched my previous videos, you'll know that I wasn't working on Monday because it was going in for a diagnostic check for its intermittent warning light. And I did that on Monday. And then yesterday I had a new windscreen fitted, so I couldn't work yesterday either. So on Monday I took it in to a garage I've used for the first time, and left it there with him all day. And then he called me in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock, and I went to collect it, and we had a chat about the van. And he showed me the tests, and effectively he couldn't find a fault, is the long and short of it. So there wasn't a repair that he could do. And on his diagnostic test, he said that there was a slight issue with the turbo, and he said that the turbo's on its way out, but it's fine for now, and that isn't, so it's not something that needs to be changed straight away. And I think there was something to do with the filter, which I had sort of a warning sign about before I got the intermittent blue warning, and that's nothing that you can do anything about it. It wasn't necessarily a problem now. I'm not experienced very well because I'm not mechanically minded, but basically he was the expert and he said something he could do right now, nothing to fix. He recommended I can keep driving it, just keep an eye on it. He had driven the vehicle. He said it was driving well, driven it a couple of times. He said for its mileage it's doing well, which I was pleased about. He reiterated that I should do a service every 10,000 miles. So I did book in a full service for the first week of August, because it had a service not long ago. And I am going to keep an eye on it in case the warning light comes up again. I did fill up with AdBlue, so it's not an AdBlue issue. It's I think to do. So it's an intermittent problem, and it's not necessarily to do with the AdBlue. I think the AdBlue warning is just a way of the system saying take it to a garage. And the other thing I learned last week is the 500 mile countdown. The first time I saw it, I was really worried about it. I thought literally the engine's going to stop working after 500 miles. But then when I stopped the engine and the next day started again, that warning light went. And then a few days later I got it again and counted again for 500 miles. So actually it's not literally 500 miles, it's 500 miles when it counts down. So I feel at this point, if that warning comes up again, I'll keep working. I'll turn off the engine and stop, and I'll fill it with AdBlue, and it might go. And if it doesn't go, I've got 500 miles to realise, oh, this is not going now, I'll get myself home. So I feel that I can work the van. I don't have to, when the warning light comes up, immediately stop work and take it in. I feel there's a bit of a grey area with these warning lights. So I know the van enough that I can use some, what I would call common sense. We will find out if that proves to be a very unwise approach. But it's going to be serviced in August. I'll keep an eye on it. I feel confident that the van's going to work what I need it for in the meantime. But I suppose what I'm doing now is I'm sharing with you publicly the ups and downs of owning a van. It can be difficult. At this point, I've reminded of something that I'm going to say. It's a little thing that I do to myself, but I'm going to do it publicly now. Oh, here comes the rain. I'm not someone who is superstitious. I'm very logical. I think superstitions are quite interesting in sort of, they have a historical context, and they have they show the human psyche. But one of the things is that I quite enjoy doing is tempting fate. So I do not believe there is such a thing as fate. I think fate is the way that the human mind kind of uses. It's a concept that the human mind does to try and explain things they don't explain about the world. So let me demonstrate what I mean by that. I'm going to say to you now, on this journey to Scotland, I really hope I don't break down on the way to Scotland. I'm sure I won't break down, because that's my way of tempting fate. If there was such a thing as fate, some sort of external force that listens to me and would react to my outward expression, then if I say that and I'm tempting fate, surely fate would then say, ha-ha, I'm going to now make your van break down. But what if it doesn't break down? Surely that means there's no such thing as fate. Anyway, so most journeys I say to myself out loud that, and most of the time I don't break down, so most of the time I win against fate. So let's see if that happens. I've now done it to the whole world for the first time. Right, next thing, probably very loud, that's rain, so I'll try and talk a little bit louder. As of this morning, I've got 56 subscribers. Thank you very much to all of you people. I really appreciate the explosion of numbers. It's amazing. Thank you. I want to talk to you a bit about something I found out about YouTube over the weekend. And it's something that surprised me, but maybe it shouldn't have done. I'll tell you what, I'm going to pause the video just in case you can't hear me. And when it stops raining, I'll restart it. I'm back, that's better. So, I want to tell you about something I've learnt about YouTube, which I said I was quite surprised about, but maybe I shouldn't have been. Now, I know that YouTube is a business, and I understand the general point about YouTube's business model, which is they need to make money from selling advertising, and the way they do that is by encouraging lots and lots of people to be on their platform for as long as possible. So they reward people, creators I suppose, who can engage with lots of people for a long period of time. I get that, I'm not that naive, but I don't know the specifics about how that works, that business model works. And so I came into this thinking, I don't like adverts on YouTube videos. They come up and I can't wait for them to go off, and I skip them 5 seconds in. But I'm prepared for the people that I subscribe to do that because their content is valuable and it's free. And the people I subscribe to aren't there sort of selling stuff. They're generally doing, I think, a service. And I know there is a kind of YouTube career model where you can make big money by fostering a large audience, and you can do product placements and get people to give you lots of money for that. And I think that is not, I don't like that aspect of YouTube, but I accept that that's a way people can make money. I'm not criticising them for doing it, but it's not something I want to do. And so I thought that I would get a choice about adverts, and I would just say, I don't want adverts. I just want to, this is just a little corner of the internet where I can express my view and just have it as a kind of a low-key place where you just come and watch a few videos that I talk about my life. And I noticed over the weekend that a couple of my videos had adverts on, and I didn't, just to be clear, I did not create a setting that said you could have adverts. I don't know how that happened. I got no idea what led to that. Probably got something to do with my subscriber numbers, I don't know. Or maybe the viewing time, I don't know. I've got no idea. If you happen to know what starts YouTube putting adverts on your videos and whether you can stop it or not, I'd like to know. So if you didn't know, I don't think the YouTube videos that I watch have chosen to advertise on. Maybe they have, I don't know. But I haven't, and there are adverts on at least some of my videos. So that was something I learnt about YouTube, but I suppose it's all a learning curve, isn't it, for me, this whole thing. And I think the last thing that I'd like to talk about, this is a bit, I suppose, about what I've learnt about the job, and I want to use a context about how I see the world to explain this next thing. It's going to be about co-loading. I want to talk to you about co-loading. So before I start all that, co-loading I'm defining as when a driver takes more than one person's goods in their van at the same time. So I want to explain to you, just talk to you about my views about co-loading. And as always is the case, this is just my opinion, and you will have your own opinion. And the context for this is, I think life is full of grey. It's not black and white. And I'm going to use co-loading as an example to explain that. So in my mind, there are different levels, different kinds of co-loading. The first kind of co-loading is, as a driver, you get a job from a shipper, and the shipper says, can you please go to point A, pick up my load, and deliver it to point C, and on the way, go to point B, pick up another load, and drop off at point C as well. So A and B are different customers, different people. So you are actually co-loading in that case, but you're doing it because the shipper wants you to do it. So I wouldn't even think twice about doing that. That's what the shipper wants. I would do that happily for them. And in the same way, if the shipper says, could you pick up from point A and take this item to point B and this item to point C, again, that's a form of co-loading. It's one shipper, it's what they want, but they are co-loading different customers' items on your van. So in this example, the shipper obviously knows about it, it's their preference. They're making a bit of a better margin off it, I'm assuming, or a better level of service for the customers. You know, there's something in it for the shipper. It's not the driver's choice, so do it. No problem at all. Wouldn't even think twice. The second level of co-loading, as I see it, is you might get a bid come up on the CX system, and there's a note that says you can co-load this. So before you even bid, the person you're bidding with has given you permission to co-load their load. In which case, you don't even really have to confirm it with them, it's in writing. But what you do need to do is, if you then do find a second load as a co-load, you do need to tell the second shipper that you've currently got a load on and that you are going to be taking their load directly. So you're not really co-loading the second job. The second job is kind of becoming your primary job then, but you've got goods on board. And providing the second shipper knows that you've got goods on board, you are co-loading, but you're doing their job like it's a direct A to B. And I would say, alongside that example, something I do a lot, I've got a shipper I've got a shipper who do regular work for, who I know, and I know for these particular items, when I do their job, they're happy for me to co-load. So I don't need to, every time I do their load, to double check with them, can I co-load this? Because I know that from our relationship. But what I do need to do is I need to check with the second shipper and confirm with them, I'm not co-loading yours as a secondary load. Yours is going to be my primary load, but it's just going to be with a set of goods. And the second shipper in that case might say, I don't want to do it because I want mine to be on its own in your van. And there might be reasons for that. Even if you're going to do their delivery directly A to B, there are other reasons why they might not want to co-load. And I feel that in that case, that's fine, legitimate co-loading. The next kind of level is, you might bid on a load of jobs in one go, and then you might get a call from a shipper, let's call them shipper 1, and they give you the job and you accept their job. And obviously at this point it's not a co-load, you just accepted it as a direct A to B. You put the phone down, and then you get immediately another call from another shipper who wants you to do their job because you haven't had a chance to cancel the other bids yet. And you might say to them, oh, sorry, I've got a load. And they might say, well, I'm happy for you to co-load mine. Because they might be desperate, or they might know you're going in the right direction. So they might offer to you to co-load the second load, shipper 2 might do. In which case, there's nothing wrong in saying yes, with the caveat, I must go back to my first shipper first to check they're okay with it. In which case you go back to your first shipper and say, I've been offered the chance of a co-load, I will do your load directly, is it okay if I have a second load on board and sort of do a slight diversion first? Because you might be picking up the second shipper's job before you get to the first shipper, in which case the first shipper's job is still a direct A to B. Or it might be that they're so close together that you're not really taking any diversion. It depends on where you're going to, so you have to be very careful with that. But it's kind of being offered to you, by the second shipper as a co-load. And in that example, I would include, if you've got a second call and you know that you've got space on your van and you know that you're not going to be too delayed going to pick up two different loads, you could suggest to the second shipper that's called you, I have got a gel ready, but I'm happy to do yours as a co-load, providing my first shipper agrees. It's the same principle, just that you're suggesting it. So in this case, the co-loading in my mind is fine, but you have to make sure that the second shipper knows what you're doing and you give them the plan as to what you're going to do, and the first shipper knows what you're doing and you give them the plan that they know what you're going to do. And as long as they both agree, and as long as you're not going to be, there is a risk that you get delayed and you might get delayed in a drop-off or a pickup on one of the loads, but you have to be experienced enough to know whether that's a big enough risk to warrant the co-load. So you are taking a bit more risk by doing that, but the shippers know why you would do it. If you've experienced, you can do that, and as long as you're very careful when you give it a sense of what ETA is, in my mind I think that's okay. The next kind of co-loading, I think, strays to it's not good in my view. So all of those, I would say, are legitimate kinds of co-loading. Next example is you as a driver pick up a load, and you pick up a direct load from a shipper, and then you look for a second co-load. So, you're deliberately looking for a second co-load, and you might find a suitable co-load that you think, I can do that, it's on my way for the first trip. You ring the second shipper, you put a bid in, probably put a bid in a bit lower, and you tell the second shipper, this is a co-load and I'm going to do yours as a co-load, and you put in probably a lower price to get it. Now the second shipper knows it's a co-load, so in that respect you're fine, but what you haven't done in that case is told the first shipper that you're taking a second load on, and you might be doing the first load as a direct delivery. You might think, well, that's fine because I'm doing their load as direct delivery, but you haven't, have you? Because you've stopped to pick up the second load and you haven't told the first shipper. So although you might think you're doing nothing wrong, and it's the same as my third example I gave you a moment ago, you aren't. You are doing it wrong. You are, as a driver, in my mind at least, crossing a line. You've gone from the right side of the line to the wrong side of the line, and you're not telling the first shipper what you're doing. And as I said before, the first shipper, it might not be time sensitive, but it might be, it might be that they don't want other items that could damage their load or could contaminate their load. And unless you told them, you're not being open and honest. So it's on the milder scale of wrong, but it is, in my view, wrong. And then I think you come to the upper end of the scale of wrong, and I think this is where co-loading's got a really bad name. It's when you as a driver deliberately set out to co-load, and I would call it for greed purposes, but you would say it's just to make a living. And that would be you set out to underbid on the first load, take it like it's a direct delivery, then you'd underbid on a second load, take it like it's a direct delivery, and you wouldn't tell any of the shippers that you're co-loading. And that is despised by everyone in the industry. Every decent driver and decent shipper hates that. And I'll tell you why they hate it. The drivers hate it. The legitimate drivers hate it because they are being underbid by you and they're losing work. And the more of you that do that, the less work there is for legitimate drivers who do the job properly. The shippers hate it because they are paying for a premium same-day direct delivery. They're not paying for a pallet service or an overnight service or a do it when you feel like it service. They are paying top prices for a driver to go to a point A, to pick up on time, immediately on time, their load, and take that load secured and safely to point B directly with no significant stops, so that the customer gets their product as soon as possible because they need it as soon as possible. And so that's what they're paying for. Those shippers don't like co-loading because it's deceitful and it's not what they're paying for. Now, you as a driver, if you do that, I know you will justify it to yourself and you will feel you're doing nothing wrong. I get that. We all have our own ways of thinking about the world and how we work. And in my previous videos, I've expressed how I want to be working with people who are like-minded. And you are people who I don't want to work with. I wish you luck with your, with your aims, but I think you're doing it wrong. And I think my audience, if you're watching this, I suppose, if you're still watching this by now, you probably would agree with me. But equally, especially for shippers out there, you are also culpable for this behaviour. Because if you are giving work to drivers with negative feedback and really cheap bids, you know what is a fair price for your work. And there are shippers out there who will go for the cheaper end, who will take the risk, who will think that they're doing nothing wrong because it's a business decision, or even worse, they've got a target to meet. Maybe you're a shipper who is employed by a big shipper and you've got targets. Maybe you've never been a driver. Maybe you don't know what it's like to be a driver. Maybe you just have a target to meet and you just try and meet your target. I think that is, if you're a shipper that does that, a big shipper does that, and does it in a way that encourages co-loading, you're part of the problem. So it's not just bad drivers, it is bad shippers. And I think you have to live with yourself. And I know that if you think it's right for you, you think I'm wrong, you think you're right. And I accept that you're not going to necessarily agree with it. But I just want to express my perspective in the way that I want to do it. Life is full of grey. Co-loading is not in itself bad. It's the way that it's done. And therefore, the values that you choose to live by that decide your decision making. That's what leads to the bad name for co-loading. I think that's all I want to say about co-loading. There's probably a load more I can go about. And you think of other examples. There'll be other examples that fit in. And I have a line where there's a co-loading that I will do and co-loading I won't do. So that's that. Thank you so much for all the subscribers and the viewers. Thank you for watching. What have you learnt today?